So Royal Enfield has released a new trials version. Oh, there's a motorcycle. Meow. Royal Enfield has announced the new trials version of the bike, and it comes with these nifty low-profile engine guards. So I've managed to find a place in India to send me them for my Classic 500, and I'm going to do an installation right now. Ideally, what they're going to do is they're going to sit right there and snug right up against the sump. In order to do that, I need to mount this plate here. There's this mounting plate that's going to bolt there, and then down there, that open slot there. Like that. Now this mounting plate isn't required for those guards, but I also got the cool sump guard there along the bottom. That bolt is where that's going to mount. I'm going to mount that one of those on either side. This is a through and through bolt you can see on the other side. So I'm going to take this bolt out first, mount the top plates, and then I'll take the extra bolt and do it at that empty spot down there. This bolt here is a 12mm bolt. The nut on the other side is 13. There's a nut and a washer on that side. That goes straight through the engine, so I don't want to undo anything else that's going to rock that out of place. I'm going to put those in a safe spot. I usually put them right here with my tools so I know that they're going back where they belong. That's the plate for this side. That's the plate for the other side. Doing this one-handed so you guys can watch, but just be aware. That goes that side. Get under that cable there. Show you the plate on this side. It's gonna set there. I'm gonna replace this washer. I'm gonna replace that nut. And I'm gonna tighten it down. Now that open hole down there doesn't have a factory bolt, but luckily they've included the bolt here with the bottom of the engine guard. So you're going to have to slot in the through and through bolt through the top of your engine guard and then use the provided bolt for that open spot at the bottom. I think there's always a moment in a job where the mechanic wishes they had 3 arms, so this is one of the parts. This plate has to go in behind the guard there, and then you have to put in all the bolts. So luckily on this side, I have the exhaust that I can rest the guard on to put this plate in behind there. I'm going to start with that bolt there so I can go over to the other side, and then I can push that one straight through bolt at the top. So bolts are there, plates there, bolts there. Luckily that cable there is doing what the exhaust pipe was doing on the other side. And then we'll line up there. Now that's threaded there, so I'm gonna put you down while I thread that in. So you can see I've hand tightened that bolt through there. Now I'm gonna go ahead and do the through and through bolt to get both of these on the top. Washer. I wonder if I need the washer and the nut there. On this side, I've lost that washer. There's the mounting plate for the actual engine guard, and then behind that is this plate, so that makes that even thicker, and you can see the nylon lock nut is barely grabbing. So I've gotten rid of that washer, and we'll see if I can tighten that down a bit more and live without it. I'll keep an eye on that as I'm riding so it doesn't back out. That is a nylon nut there, so should be okay. So I've tightened these bolts down here. The factory sent these lock nuts to go on the outside of this threaded section, but because of that extra plate I've put on, there's no threads for me to connect that, so I have to leave that out, and I'll have to keep on eyeing that so it doesn't vibe itself loose. Also, I've hand tightened the through and through nut here, but in order to tighten it down, I've had to use this extender in order to get access there because of the bar there. So I'm going to tighten that down. And I'm sure there's a torque setting that I need to do over there, but I haven't done the research on that. I'm going to do that at a later time. But all in all, that looks pretty good. I'll get that plastic off after I put the bash plate on the bottom so I don't scratch those. But I do like those low profile bars. The only thing I don't like about it is that it masks this lovely winged logo there, but I do quite like the look of that. And onto the dash plate. So I'm going to do a superficial clean. A lot of dirt gets caught there. I'm going to clean under here a bit so not to memorialize the dirt under the sump guard that I'm going to install. So that's the skid plate. I think that's actually quite nice looking. It was only 70 odd quid. I mean, the skid plate that I bought for my BMW, which is made kind of the same way, was, I don't know, 200, maybe 200 quid. So I'm really quite happy with that. And that's in three spots, those two holes there and on that other side. And then underneath the engine, through that bolt there's some rubber mountings. That plate is rubber mounted, so there's really some nice detail to that skid plate. I'm going to remove these two bolts from that bracket I mounted earlier. I'm going to mount the front part first and then kind of hinge up the second part and do that through and through bolt. I think that through and through bolt is going to be the trickiest part. This is, let's see, a 8mm, which is quite small, but that's going to be that through and through bolt. You got to remove that before you do that hinging thing, or that'll get in your way. Something I've noticed also is that this nut here is welded on thread through, which means I don't have to do some weird finagling when I get into there with a separate bolt. So those bolts there, through that back bracket there, I'm going to hand tighten these bolts so I can do this hinging thing and get that back section. Alright, best laid plans. I've had to take these bolts out, hinge this side down, put the back in first, and then I'll hinge that up and compress those rubber mounts to see if I can get the front in. This bolt has this plungered sleeve that is meant to allow for pivoting if there is any. It's a very, very tight fit. It's turning into a bitch. I could not get the back in to save my life, so we're gonna do this side first and then hinge it up. It's all a learning process, isn't it? I did it. I did it. Son of a bitch. Again, have one of those extenders. Luckily that's, like I said in there, that's threaded. That's threaded in there so I don't have to get my hands in the other side and screw it around. And again, I'm sure there's a torque setting, but I'm just gonna do it to a 1/4 turn pass tight. Trick now is to get this up into there. There is a bit of springiness there, and see if we can get that in there. That was a bitch. Hopefully this side will be a bit more forgiving now that that side's in. Not so much. Okay, those bolts are in. I'm going to tighten these on the back. It's just 3 mounts. I thought 3 mounts would make it easy. I'm glad there's only 3 mounts. That's a 12mm bolt. Can't really get a ratchet in there, so I gotta funky around with my wrenches. So there we are at long last. I actually thought the engine guards would be harder to put on than the sump guard, but it turned out to be the opposite. But I'm really quite pleased with the result, and I'm looking forward to getting some looky-loos from other RE riders. Again, my only hang-up, I do quite like the kind of yellowing of that chrome. It's not proper chrome, it's kind of a bit nickel. The only thing I don't like is how it hides that beautiful winged logo, but all in all, I think it adds a very good look to the bike. If you like that video and you want to see more like them, hit like, share, and subscribe.